Kuzangpola. Welcome to Bhutan e-learning. My name is Pema Khandu and this is Environmental Science lesson Key Stage 5 for classes 11 and 12. Today in this lesson, we are going to learn about the spheres of the Earth. Before we begin with the major topic for today's lesson, let us try to recollect what you have learned in your lower classes. We have learned about ecosystem. So I would like to pose a simple question. What is an ecosystem? An ecosystem is an interaction of abiotic components with biotic components. Now what are biotic components? Biotic components are those components which are living things, especially the plants and animals. Now what is abiotic components? Those are non-living things that exist on this planet. So the examples are rock, water and soil, etc. So we have learned that an ecosystem is the interaction of biotic and abiotic components. Now an ecosystem, it can be as large as an ocean or as small as a small pond. It can be as vast as a forest and as small as this small mushroom growing on a piece of rotten log. So taking Earth as a complex ecosystem, we are going to see which subsystems or spheres of the Earth support life on Earth. So in this lesson, we will try to learn about the spheres of the Earth. We are going to elaborate on the components of each spheres, and we are also going to relate how these spheres work in order to provide a healthy ecosystem. So spheres of the Earth basically consist of number 1, the lithosphere, number 2, the atmosphere, number 3, the hydrosphere, and number 4, the biosphere. So these are the major spheres of the Earth, also known as the subsystems of the Earth. We will delve further into the details of each sphere. First one is the atmosphere. We all know that atmosphere consists of various kinds of gases. Out of many different kinds of gases, there are basically 5 important gases that we should know for this lesson. Number 1 being the nitrogen, which composed or which makes up the major proportion of the gases found in the atmosphere. It comprises of about 78% of the total volume of gases in the atmosphere. Number 2 is the oxygen. Oxygen consists of about 21%. Then others are minor, like water, it is about 0.2%. We also have a meager percentage of carbon dioxide, which is 0.3%, and 0.5% of inert gases. Now these gases are very important for the life processes in the Earth. Number 1, nitrogen. Where it is used for? What is the significance of nitrogen? It is important for basically for plants, for their growth, development. And number 2, oxygen. Where oxygen is used for and why it is important? Can you tell me? Now oxygen is very important gas for us. for our cellular respiration. Without oxygen, there is no life on earth. Likewise, water is very important for regulation of climate in the planet. And again, we are 90% of our body, or more than 90% of our body is made up of water. So water is a very vital component of the atmosphere. Then carbon dioxide. We produce a lot of carbon dioxide in a daily basis. But have you ever pondered what is the significance of carbon dioxide? We always talk about the negative points, that carbon dioxide leads to global warming, climate change, and many more, pollution. But have you ever pondered what is the use of carbon dioxide? Carbon dioxide are essential for autotrophs. Now you know the difference between autotrophs and heterotrophs. We are, can you suggest what are we? What are we? Are we autotrophs or heterotrophs? We are heterotrophs because we cannot prepare our own food, so we depend on plants for our source of food. Whereas autotrophs can prepare their own food. So some bacteria, some microorganisms are autotrophs in nature. They can prepare their own food. So the raw material used for preparing their own food is carbon dioxide. The next one is inert gases that I have shown you in the slide. Inert gases are argon, helium, neon, and you probably have learned more in your chemistry classes. So these inert gases are very, very important again, especially for used in commodities such as lamp, for hot air balloon, for airships. So these are the raw materials used in these commodities. So inert gases are also very significant part of atmosphere. Now, in terms of major layers, the atmosphere is divided into 4 types. The first layer of the atmosphere is the troposphere, right? The second layer of the atmosphere is the stratosphere. The third one is the mesosphere, and the fourth one is the thermosphere. So we are going to deal on this layer separately. Let us move on with the troposphere. Troposphere is the nearest layer to the Earth. As I said, it is nearest layer to the Earth. It is about between 12 to 20 kilometers from the Earth's surface. It is also known as the turbulent zone, owing to severe wind activity and cloud formation taking place in this layer, troposphere. Now, this one is the most important zone for us because we derive necessary oxygen and nitrogen from this layer. Let's move on with the stratosphere. Stratosphere is the second layer of the atmosphere, which is just about 12 to 50 kilometers above the Earth's surface. Now, this layer is again one of the most important layer because it is rich in the very important molecule known as O3. Now, what is O3? Can one of you tell me what is O3? You're right, it is known as ozone. Now, stratosphere contains ozone, and ozone is also known as the sunscreen of the earth. Why do you think it is called as sunscreen of the earth? Because it protects, the ozone layer protects the earth from the harmful ultraviolet rays or UV rays from entering to our planet. So, it basically shields the ozone UV rays from reaching to the earth's surface. Now, let us move on with the formation of ozone. Now, this is a very important concept for you to remember, the formation of ozone. We know that in the atmosphere there are oxygen molecule, right? Now, this oxygen molecule is in the presence of UV light or ultraviolet radiations, it breaks down to individual oxygen atom. Now, this individual oxygen atom this individual oxygen atom further combines with oxygen molecule. Now, may I ask you, what is the end product of this combination or reaction? Exactly, there are 3 oxygen atoms. So, it gives rise to O3, also known as the ozone. So, ozone formation basically takes place in these 2 simple steps. First, the oxygen molecule is broken down to individual oxygen atom in the presence of UV light, and this individual oxygen atom combines with oxygen molecule to give rise to ozone layer. Okay, sorry, ozone. So, ozone, we have learned about ozone layer formation or ozone formation simply. Now, we should also know about ozone depletion. This is actually happening at the unprecedented rate at this in this 21st century of we also call it as the world of industrialization, because there are many factories coming up, right? And we actually tend to depend on different kinds of ozone depleting substances that we use in day-to-day life, in our houses, in the factories. So, ozone depletion is again a very important topic for you to learn and remember. Depletion basically means destruction, right, or reduction of ozone molecule in the atmosphere. So, we are going to study about how ozone depletion takes place. We are all aware of that we depend on refrigerators, we depend on aerosols, we depend on fire depressants. So, all these things actually contribute to ozone release to the atmosphere. So, okay. You have learned about CFCs in your lower classes. CFCs stands for chlorofluorocarbons, and there are again hydrochlorofluorocarbons. There are many ODSs, ozone depleting substances, like chlorofluorocarbons, which are being emitted from the refrigerants, from the air conditioners, from the aerosols. So, these CFCs are released to the atmosphere from our industries, from our homes. Now, in the atmosphere, in the atmosphere, the chlorofluoromethane reacts with UV light and it produces chlorofluorochloride and chlorine. Okay. So, this chlorine actually is the major culprit in breaking down the ozone layer. Now, what happens when chlorine reacts with oxygen? Chlorine reacts with ozone. It breaks down the ozone layer. Okay. It breaks down the ozone layer and gives rise to chlorine monoxide and oxygen. So, we have three important reactions taking place leading to ozone depletion. The first one, the chlorofluorochloride reacts with UV light and it produces the major byproduct is the chlorine. The chlorine reacts with ozone and it depletes the ozone and gives rise to chlorine monoxide and oxygen. Now, when chlorine monoxide reacts with the free oxygen molecule, it gives rise to chlorine and oxygen. Now, this cycle continues. This cycle continues for more than 100,000 times. So, in that way, you can just imagine at what rate the ozone depletion takes place because of the continuous release of CFCs in the atmosphere. So, if you have any doubt regarding ozone depletion, you can you can ask or you can leave a comment later when you submit your work to me. Now, what are consequences of ozone depletion? We have learned about ozone depletion. So, there are many detrimental or negative consequences of ozone depletion. The first one, to us the human beings, you have learned about the skin cancer, the cataract, premature aging and compromised immune system. These are not only due to ingestion of chemicals from the environment or due to our exposure to other harmful elements. It can be also caused by UV rays. When the ozone depletion takes place, UV rays can enter into the atmosphere and reach the Earth's surface. So, this is one of the major negative causes of ozone depletion. Not only to human beings, even plants are being affected. It is said that UV rays inhibits growth and development. It can also reduce plant yield and it can also change the natural phenological cycles, like when the plants do not flower or do not bear fruit when it is time for them to do so. It has tremendous effects to materials as well. It damages aesthetic and functional qualities of materials, causing economic losses. So, these are the effects of ozone depletion to plants, humans and materials. Now we will go into mesosphere, which is the third layer of the atmosphere. It is located above 50 kilometer, okay, ranging to about 80 kilometer. And mesosphere is said to be the coldest region of the atmosphere because it has very less gases like oxygen and others. Now we will move on to the last layer of the atmosphere, which is the thermosphere. As the name suggests, thermosphere is the hottest region of the atmosphere, and the temperature ranges to about 2000 degrees Celsius. This is due to severe activity of the solar radiation, also known as flare activity, and also it is because of this extreme regulation of temperature. It breaks down these the molecules into ions, oxygen molecules into ions, nitrogen oxides into ions. So in that way, it is also known as ionosphere because it breaks down these molecules into ions in the thermosphere. There are various variation in the temperature as we move on from troposphere to stratosphere, mesosphere and thermosphere. You have seen that there are variations in the temperature. So this actually is led due to the density of gases present in each layer, the altitude as we go on from the surface of the earth, and due to the pressure. In the lower surface of the troposphere, it is very hot because the earth's surface absorbs heat and radiates back, and the stratosphere, when it goes above the stratosphere, the temperature is very cold again, the coldest region being the mesosphere. However, while it reaches to the thermosphere, as I mentioned already, it becomes very hot. So the temperature is caused due to difference in density of the air, due to altitude of the of each layer, and then due to the pressure. Okay. So I will ask you two questions here. What is the zone of transition between the two layers called? Define lapse rate. So based on the atmospheric temperature variations, you can answer these two questions. The third one is the lithosphere. As you know that a lithosphere is the outermost or the solid layer of the earth. Right now we are all standing or sitting on the surface of the earth, on the lithosphere. Lithosphere can range from 70 to 100 kilometer depth below the earth's surface, and it is the major component of terrestrial ecosystem. Plants derive necessary minerals from the lithosphere. Lithosphere again is further divided into two categories. They are pedosphere and tectonic plates. Pedosphere is the layer of soil and soil formation processes. Tectonic plates are actually the fragments of lithosphere, and which are in continuous movement because of energy derived from the inner core. Let us move on to the third sphere of the earth, that is the hydrosphere. Hydrosphere consists of all water bodies. It covers about 70% of the surface of the earth, and many aquatic life are found on hydrosphere. Hydrosphere is again divided into three categories of ecosystem. The first one is freshwater ecosystem, which which is formed by, which usually includes our flowing river system, the lakes, and the marine ecosystem is the largest hydrospheric ecosystem, which includes oceans and seas, and wetland ecosystem, which includes marshes, swamps, and bogs. Okay, so these are actually the three kinds of hydrospheric ecosystem that we find on planet. Now, the last sphere of the earth is the biosphere. Biosphere, as I already told you, it consists of biotic components of all ecosystem. Biosphere interacts with the hydrosphere, lithosphere, and atmosphere. Now, I would again like to throw some questions here. Which layer of the atmosphere is considered as the sunscreen of the earth, and why? The second question is quite interesting, and you have to do it on your own, sitting in a separate room. You have to work silently. The question is, construct a concept map to illustrate the interaction of lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere to support biosphere. I have done myself. I have constructed my concept map, which I am going to show you in the next lesson. Now, coming back to the topic that we started with, which is the ecosystem. We have dealt about subsystems which support the largest ecosystem indeed, that is the earth. So, everything, now we came to know that everything is connected, interconnected. Ecosystem is the network of both biotic and abiotic components, and every individual, every living organism has a niche, a role to play in the ecosystem. So, I would like to conclude with the summary that of what we have learned today. We have discussed about the 4 spheres of earth, that is atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and biosphere, and how they interact to support life on earth. With this, thank you for attending today's class. I hope to see you all in the next lesson.